Thank you. Lord bless you. Good to be here with all of you. I know that we're late getting here, but good to be here. And some different ones have asked if we had the privilege of being at the funeral of Nola. And almost all of you know Nola. There's very few that don't. Sandy made it. I didn't. We knew she was really on the brink before we left for Ecuador. In fact, Sandy and our youngest daughter had the privilege of taking the last meal to their home before she passed away. And they had it scheduled, people bringing food in. And our two daughters were good friends with the twins, so they knew them real well. And so Sandy and them, the daughter, took food over there, and it was a real privilege. And we knew that time was slipping away, but we were in Ecuador, and we got the message that she had passed away. So then we started trying to get home. I was calling and ended up calling United and connecting in Mexico and everything else, and finally got connected. It was on a weekend, so got connected in Guatemala City, went to the airport twice, which is an hour out of Guatemala City, Quito. I'm back in Guatemala. We spent a lot of years in Guatemala. My mind's still in Guatemala, but in Ecuador. But anyway, we decided the best thing to do was go to the airport. We packed up everything, went to the airport to stand by. They kept telling us the plane was full, it was full, it was full. But we got to the airport, and the one lady, we knew several of them there because we fly there all the time, so we knew several of them. We talked to them, and the one lady said, "Oh, I'm almost certain you're going to get on the plane." It was 11:30 at night. She said, "We'll know by 11:30 because the flight leaves at 12:30. Well, it was like 11:25. And we saw this one person come running in with bags, this lady. Then a guy came in, and we knew that there was only a few seats left. And then they came to us and said, "We're sorry, we only have one seat." And so I let Sandy have that. And we'd already talked to her daughter back in Houston. And so she drove Sandy over to the funeral, which was a great time for her to be there and talk with everybody, see everybody. Now, a lot of you don't realize how connected we were with Noah. I'd have to go back to when we first went to International Bible College. We were standing, I could tell you, in San Antonio, I could tell you almost where at. And we went to IBC not knowing where we were going as missionaries. We were called under, the ministry of Brother Masters in Bloomington, and not knowing exactly where the Lord wanted us to go. We were at IBC, and Nola had come up from Durango. Jerry had already passed away, and she had us take her back to Durango, so we drove her back to Durango. And she said, in talking, she said, "You guys ought to go to Guatemala." Well, I didn't know much about Guatemala. It's like I could tell one of you, "Hey, you ought to go to Africa," but God was in it. She said, "You guys ought to go to Guatemala." She said, when Jerry was living, we had talked about going down to Guatemala to start a work. And so that, okay, she said that. But I'm thinking, here Jerry's passed away. I would think she would be saying, "Why don't you guys come to Durango?" But she didn't. And we also knew the Merwins, Dave and Judy Merwin. We thought they'd be saying, and they were saying, "Hey, come to Korea." But Nola said, "You guys ought to go to Guatemala." Well, another day, her dad, Eugene, was at IBC, and he said, "You guys ought to go to Guatemala." Now, this is all separate, too. And then another day, in chapel service, the speaker happened to be from Guatemala. And so, you got to be kind of hard-headed, Guatemala, Guatemala, Guatemala. So that's how we ended up. So we were very good friends with Nola, the whole family, and so it was a very hard month for us. very special person in our life, and the whole family, the kids and all of them. We've known them for all these years. So Sandy went there, and it was a great time of celebration. But I won't go into detail how she got so sick. She got all the way to San Antonio. Couldn't hardly get out of bed. She was so sick, but finally she said to our daughter, Kim, she said, "Get ready, we're going." And I mean, they went halfway through the service. She ended up going to the bathroom, texting Kim, "Kim, come," and all that. But I won't go into all that. But anyway, and then Kim said, "Mom, are we leaving?" She said, "No, we're not leaving. I'm not done yet." So they stayed. But anyway, it was quite a trying time. But anyway, I was glad that Sandy could make it. Sorry that I couldn't make it. But it's so good to be here. And people wonder a lot of times, what are we doing? Our work in Ecuador continues on just like it has for years in evangelism, literature, Bibles. We were able to help the Bible Society get started there a few years ago, and our national leader, he's one of the executives on the Bible Society. We distribute more Bibles probably than anybody in the country of Ecuador. We still do all of that, but what we've been doing the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, is coming alongside pastors and trying to encourage them. Any pastors ever need encouragement? Well, we try to come alongside of them, encourage them, and equip them. We've given so many ministers good study books, good study Bibles. They don't have all of the things that we have in the States, and many of them haven't had the privilege of studying in a Bible seminary or institute. And so we try to equip them, trying to encourage them in evangelism, reaching their area, and trying to help them expand their facilities. Now, this last year and a half, we've been working directly out at the coast for the earthquake. Everybody's forgot about an earthquake in Ecuador. In a few weeks, everybody will forget about all the flooding in Houston. Now, people have asked us, too, about the situation. We praise the Lord. Boy, I tell you, the water was so close. 3 o'clock in the morning, I was up looking out the window, watching. And we had rain for 5 days. I mean, it flooded. But we didn't get any water in our house. Our 2 daughters didn't get any water. We praise the Lord. But the pictures tell some of it, but you have to see it to realize just what all of that was about. And still, people will say, "Oh, is it still bad?" Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can go down streets, and you can't hardly see the houses for all the stuff that's piled up front because they can't haul it away fast enough. I mean, I forget how many tons. I mean, it's just tons. I mean, the trucks, the semis, I mean, there are hundreds of them. But, just one house of all of your furniture and all of the drywall, all of the sheetrock, I mean, it'll almost fill up a truck. One truck, just one house. And I mean, going down through there. And it didn't matter if it was a $75,000 home or if it was a $750,000 home. I mean, we saw them all. Our youngest daughter was very involved in all of this. Immediately she works with the church. They started a team of ladies fixing lunches. They were fixing 700 or 800 lunches a day and distributed them. Then they had people going out to all of these streets. All you do is just go to a street. But they would get texts and calls they needed 25 lunches, 50 lunches, 75 lunches. All these people out there tearing out the houses, taking everything out, cutting the sheetrock. It was amazing how God's people worked. Our daughter was telling the story at one house. Some of the church people were there, and they didn't ask if you're Christian to go clean out the house. And they just go. And they asked this one family, they said, well, by the way, what church do you guys go to? They said, we go to your church now. We go to your church now. Because they were so impressed that God's people would come out and do that stuff. And we were so proud. Our grandson, 15 years old, he was out there day after day. I mean, they had masks on, gloves on. And you have to remember, this water wasn't sky water, just sky water. Water come down, but everything came up. So you have to realize this water was very contaminated, very terrible. But it's so good to be here. Lord bless you guys. Thanks, Brother Jim. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for your support.
I just wanted to say one thing, because my husband got way off track from Ecuador. But anyway, last January, we've been working out at the coast with the people after the earthquake. And last January, we had a children's crusade. There's a church out there, and it's up on a hill, and all down that hill were tents, and people still living in tents after the earthquake. And I had the privilege of actually going into some of those tents and seeing what they look like on the inside, and it was overwhelming. I remember the one was just dirt floor, and the chickens were running around, and their bed was over there, and their little table there with some dishes on it. But you know what chickens do, right? So here they're running around inside of the house. But we had 300 children come from those tents and all around that area, people who had gone through the earthquake, and we had 300 children come to the crusade. And we had balloons, we had clowns, we had teaching, we had told them about the salvation bracelet and gave them each a salvation bracelet, you know, the colors, black, red, you know. And it was just a really happy time for them. And afterwards, the pastor and his wife were telling us that the children had not smiled since the earthquake. And here it had been months, and they just didn't smile anymore after the earthquake. But that day, when we had the crusade, they were laughing, they were smiling, they were just having a big time. And so we got the privilege to minister to these kids that had gone through the earthquake.